The bowl scraped across my polished oak table with a sound that silenced 20 conversations at once. I looked up from adjusting the lace napkin in my lap to see my son Gregor standing over me, his face twisted into something between a smirk and a sneer. The crystal glasses caught the afternoon sunlight streaming through my dining room windows, creating little rainbows that danced across the white tablecloth I'd ironed that morning. The smell of roast chicken hung in the air, mixing with the sweet aroma of the apple pie cooling on the sideboard. My heart hammered against my ribs as I stared at what he'd placed before me. A metal dog bowl. The same one our golden retriever Bailey had eaten from before she passed 2 years ago. Inside it, brown chunks of something swimming in gravy. Gregor leaned close enough that I could smell the wine on his breath. "This is what freeloaders eat, old woman," he said, loud enough for every guest to hear. The grandfather clock in the corner ticked 3 times before anyone moved. My name is Harriet Lawson, and I'd spent 42 years as a school principal in Minneapolis. I'd guided thousands of children through their formative years, teaching them respect, dignity, and consequences. I'd raised 2 kids of my own after my husband Thomas died of a heart attack when they were barely teenagers. I'd worked double shifts to keep this house, the one Thomas and I bought in 1978 with our combined savings. The mortgage was paid off in 2001. Every piece of furniture held a memory. The antique clock was Thomas's grandfather's. The lace curtains were handmade by my mother. The oak table had hosted countless family dinners, homework sessions, and late-night conversations. I'd sacrificed vacations, new clothes, and personal dreams to give my children everything they needed. And now, on my 70th birthday, surrounded by friends from the neighborhood and church, my own son was serving me dog food. The betrayal cut deeper than any physical wound possibly could have. The dining room had gone completely silent. Mrs. Patterson from next door stared at her plate, her fork frozen halfway to her mouth. Reverend Holmes cleared his throat twice, but said nothing. My friend Virginia reached across the table as if to touch my hand, then pulled back. 20 faces showed varying degrees of shock, embarrassment, and horror. But nobody spoke. Nobody stood up to defend me. Nobody told Gregor his behavior was unacceptable. They just watched, waiting to see what I would do. Gregor's girlfriend Melina stood behind him, her phone held up, recording everything. She giggled, a high-pitched sound that made my skin crawl. "This is perfect," she whispered to someone beside her. "Absolutely perfect." My roast chicken sat untouched on the serving platter, the one I'd woken up at 5 in the morning to prepare. The scalloped potatoes were getting cold. The Caesar salad I'd spent an hour making was wilting under the heat of too many bodies in one room. I stood slowly, my chair scraping against the hardwood floor Thomas and I had refinished together in 1995. My hands were steady as I picked up the dog bowl, feeling the cold metal against my palms. The gravy sloshed slightly, and the smell of artificial beef made my stomach turn. I looked at Gregor. Really looked at him. When had my son become this person? When had the boy who used to bring me dandelions from the yard turned into someone capable of such cruelty? His eyes held no remorse, only satisfaction. He was enjoying this. Enjoying my humiliation in front of people I'd known for decades. I set the bowl down on the floor, right next to the antique sideboard my grandmother had given me as a wedding present. Then I walked toward the hallway, my back straight, my head high. Behind me, Gregor's voice rang out cheerfully. "Well, everyone, let's not let good food go to waste. Who wants more chicken?" The sound of forced laughter followed me up the stairs. In my study, I locked the door and sat at my desk. The room was exactly as I'd left it that morning. My reading glasses folded neatly beside a stack of library books. The framed photo of Thomas smiling at me from our wedding day. The ceramic mug Gregor had made me in 3rd grade, now holding pens. My hands shook as I opened my laptop. For years. Gregor and Melina had lived in my house for 4 years. No rent. No contributions to groceries or utilities. No help with maintenance or repairs. They'd moved in temporarily after Gregor lost his job at the marketing firm. "Just until we get back on our feet, Mom," he'd promised. That was 48 months ago. I'd been patient. Understanding. After all, times were tough. Young people struggled. But patience and understanding had gotten me a bowl of dog food on my birthday. I pulled up my bank statements, something I did monthly out of habit from my accounting classes years ago. The numbers swam before my eyes. The unauthorized charges jumped out at me like red flags. Best Buy, $1,800. Nordstrom, $2,200. A car dealership in St. Paul, $8,500 for a down payment on a Honda Civic I'd never seen. Restaurant charges at expensive places downtown, sometimes 3 or 4 times a week. Weekend trips to Chicago and Milwaukee. Concert tickets. Gaming equipment. All charged to my credit card. All without my permission. I'd added Gregor as an authorized user when he turned 18, thinking it would help him build credit. I'd never removed him. Melina had been added 3 years ago when they got engaged, an engagement that never led to a wedding. I opened my spreadsheet program and began calculating. Property taxes I'd paid for 4 years. Homeowners insurance. Utilities averaging $350 monthly because they kept the heat too high and left lights on constantly. Groceries for 3 people when I'd been shopping for 1. By midnight, I had my total. $31,247. That's what I'd spent supporting 2 adults who should have been supporting themselves. That's what my generosity had cost me. But the number didn't capture everything. It didn't include the disrespect, the way they treated my home like a hotel, the times I'd heard them laughing about my old-fashioned ways, the constant mess they left for me to clean, the way Melina had rearranged my kitchen without asking, putting things where I couldn't find them, the noise at all hours, the friends they invited over who drank my wine and never said thank you. I closed the laptop and stared at Thomas's photo. He would have known what to do. Thomas had always been better at confrontation than me. I'd spent my career managing difficult situations with diplomacy and patience. But this wasn't a school dispute. This was my life, my home, my dignity. Sunday morning arrived with frost on the windows. I heard Gregor and Melina moving around downstairs, their voices carrying up through the heating vents. They sounded cheerful, unbothered by yesterday's events. I stayed in my room until I heard the front door close and their car pull away. Only then did I venture downstairs. The dining room had been cleaned, at least. The dishes were washed and put away. But Bailey's bowl sat on the counter, a reminder. I picked it up and dropped it in the trash. Then I made coffee and called my lawyer. Patricia Drummond had handled Thomas's estate and my will. She was 73, sharp as a tack, and had no patience for nonsense. "Harriet," she answered on the second ring. "Happy belated birthday. How was the party?" "I need to remove 2 people from my house," I said. "My son and his girlfriend. They're not on any lease. No rental agreement. They've been here for years without paying anything." There was a pause. "Tell me everything." Patricia listened without interrupting as I laid out the situation. The financial details, the unauthorized charges, yesterday's humiliation. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. "First thing Monday morning, we remove them as authorized users on all your accounts," she said. "Credit cards, bank cards, everything. Then we draft a notice to vacate. Under Minnesota law, they're considered licensees, not tenants. You can revoke their permission to be there with reasonable notice. 2 weeks should be sufficient and shows good faith." "What if they refuse to leave?" I asked. "Then we file for eviction and involve law enforcement if necessary. But most people leave when they realize you're serious. Now about those unauthorized charges. That's potentially fraud. Have you authorized any of these purchases?" "None of them. Document everything. Every receipt, every statement, every charge. We may need to involve the police." The word police made my stomach clench. But Patricia was right. This had gone beyond family drama into criminal territory. Monday morning at exactly 8 o'clock, I called my bank. Wells Fargo had been my bank since 1976. I knew most of the branch employees by name. "This is Harriet Lawson," I told the representative. "I need to remove 2 authorized users from my accounts immediately." The process took 30 minutes. Security questions, verification protocols, confirmation of my identity. By 8:45, both Gregor and Melina were removed from my credit cards. By 9:15, their debit card access was revoked. I changed my PIN to something they'd never guess. Then, I changed all my online banking passwords. I set up fraud alerts on my phone, text and email notifications for any attempted transactions. By 10 o'clock, every financial tie was severed. They still lived in my house, but they could no longer access my money. I made breakfast, scrambled eggs, and toast, and waited. The cameras I'd installed over the weekend were hidden in the living room bookshelf and on top of the kitchen refrigerator. Legal in Minnesota with proper notification, which I'd provided via written notice that morning. Gregor tried to buy lunch around noon. I knew because my phone buzzed with an alert. Transaction declined. He tried again 5 minutes later. Same result. Then Melina's card was declined at Target. The cameras showed them arriving home at 2:30, talking in urgent whispers. Gregor went straight to his wallet, pulled out both cards, and stared at them as if they'd personally betrayed him. He called the bank. I listened from upstairs as he argued with the representative. What do you mean I'm not authorized? I've been on this account for years. There must be a mistake. His voice grew louder. Let me talk to your supervisor. This is ridiculous. After 10 minutes, he hung up and immediately called my phone. I let it ring. He called 4 more times. I ignored each one. Finally, he climbed the stairs and knocked on my study door. Mom, we need to talk. Something's wrong with the bank accounts. I didn't answer. Mom, I know you're in there. Open the door. That evening, I received a call from Virginia, my friend who'd been at the birthday party. Harriet, I've been thinking about Saturday, she said carefully. What Gregor did was unacceptable. I should have said something. We all should have. It's not your fault, I told her. But I appreciate you calling. Several of us have been talking. Mrs. Patterson, Reverend Holmes, the Hendersons. If you need statements about what happened, written accounts will provide them. I felt tears prick my eyes. That would be helpful, actually. My lawyer might need them. You hired a lawyer? Virginia sounded relieved. Good. That boy needs to learn some respect. After we hung up, I drafted a simple form. A statement of witness account with spaces for the date, the witness's name, and their description of events. I printed 20 copies. By Wednesday, I had 12 returned to me, each one describing in detail what they'd seen. The dog food. Gregor's words. Melina filming. My dignified response. Social proof, Patricia called it. Evidence that I wasn't exaggerating or misremembering. I began making small changes to the house. The spare key that used to hang by the back door disappeared. The Wi-Fi password changed to something impossible to guess. I locked the door to the basement where I kept family heirlooms and important papers. I moved Thomas's antique watch collection from the dresser in the guest room to my bedroom safe. Every piece of valuable jewelry went with it. I wasn't accusing them of being thieves. Not yet. But I was protecting what mattered. Gregor noticed immediately. Mom, why is the basement locked? I need to get some stuff from storage. The lock needed changing, I said simply. It wasn't working properly. Well, can I have the new key? No. The word hung in the air between us. He blinked, surprised. I'd never denied him anything before. What do you mean, no? I mean no. The basement is locked. It's staying locked. His face reddened, but I walked away before he could respond. Thursday afternoon, Melina cornered me in the kitchen. Her eyes were red, as if she'd been crying. Harriet, we need to talk about what's happening. I continued chopping vegetables for my dinner. Just mine. I'd stopped cooking for them on Monday. What would you like to discuss? The bank cards, the locked doors. You're freezing us out. I don't understand why you're being so hostile. I set down my knife and turned to face her. Melina, do you remember what happened at my birthday party? She waved a hand dismissively. That was just Gregor being stupid. He was drunk. He didn't mean anything by it. He called me a freeloader in my own house. In front of 20 people. You filmed it. It was a joke. Her voice rose. Why can't you take a joke? Jokes are funny. Humiliation isn't. So you're punishing us? That's mature. I picked up my knife again. I'm establishing boundaries. Something I should have done years ago. Friday morning, a courier arrived with a registered letter. I signed for it and brought it to Gregor and Melina, who were eating cereal in the living room. This is for both of you, I said, handing it over. Gregor tore it open. I watched his face change as he read. The legal letterhead. The formal language. Notice to vacate premises. You are hereby notified that you're licensed to occupy the property located at. He looked up at me, his mouth open. You're evicting us? You have 14 days to find other housing, I said calmly. The notice explains everything. You can remove your belongings during that time. Melina grabbed the letter from him. This is insane. Where are we supposed to go? That's not my concern. You're both adults with college degrees. I'm sure you'll figure something out. We don't have any money, Gregor shouted. You cut off our access to everything. Your access to my money, I corrected. You never had a right to it in the first place. Over the weekend, Gregor tried everything. Saturday morning, he appeared with flowers. Mom, I'm sorry. Really sorry. Let's talk about this rationally. I accepted the flowers and put them in a vase. Thank you. The notice stands. Saturday afternoon, Melina tried tears. Please, Harriet. We have nowhere to go. You're basically making us homeless. 2 weeks is plenty of time to find an apartment. Sunday morning, Gregor tried anger. This is my house too. I grew up here. Your name isn't on the deed. It never has been. Sunday afternoon, they tried together, presenting a united front. We'll pay rent, Gregor offered. Whatever you think is fair. The decision is final. I documented every conversation, every attempt at manipulation. The cameras caught everything. Their panic was visible and growing. Monday morning, I woke to find them searching my study. The camera footage showed Melina going through my filing cabinet while Gregor checked drawers. They were looking for something. Financial documents, probably. The property deed. Anything they could use. I called Patricia. They're searching for documents. Change the lock on your study door. Today. And file a police report about the unauthorized credit card charges. We need that on record. The locksmith arrived within 2 hours. While he worked, Gregor hovered. What are you doing? Securing my private space. From who? Us. From everyone. The new lock was solid, commercial grade. The locksmith handed me 3 keys. I thanked him, paid cash, and went back inside. Gregor and Melina watched from the living room, their expressions shifting from confusion to realization to fear. That afternoon, I drove to the police station. Officer Amanda Torres listened to my statement, reviewed my documentation, and took notes. Mrs. Lawson, based on what you're showing me, this appears to be identity theft and credit card fraud. The charges were made without your authorization, using cards in your name. Yes. We'll need to investigate. But I can tell you now, this is serious. We're talking potential criminal charges. The next week crawled by. Gregor and Melina barely spoke to me. They spent most of their time on their phones, presumably looking for apartments, jobs, somewhere to go. I overheard fragments of conversations. Nobody will rent to us, without proof of income. My credit score is terrible. Maybe your sister in Denver? She said no. I continued my documentation. Photos of every room, time-stamped and dated. Inventory of all their possessions. I wanted no confusion about what belonged to whom. Patricia called Wednesday afternoon. The police are moving forward with the fraud investigation. They'll want to interview Gregor and Melina. Probably this week. Thank you. Harriet, are you sure about all this? Once criminal charges are filed, there's no taking it back. I thought about the dog bowl. About 4 years of disrespect. About $31,000 spent on people who saw me as nothing more than a resource to exploit. I'm sure. Thursday morning, I drafted a letter. Not angry, not emotional. Just factual. Dear Gregor and Melina, you have violated my trust and my financial security. The police are investigating credit card fraud. You have options. Option 1. Face criminal prosecution, which could result in jail time. Option 2. Sign a restitution agreement for $31,247, payable at $800 per month. Option 3. Declare bankruptcy, which will impact your credit for 7 years. You have until Friday to decide. Respond through my attorney, Patricia Drummond. I printed 2 copies, placed them in envelopes, and left them on the kitchen counter. Then I went to the library. I stayed there for 4 hours, reading, drinking tea, avoiding the confrontation I knew was coming. When I returned home, the envelopes were gone. Gregor and Melina's bedroom door was closed. Voices leaked through, urgent and frightened. I made dinner for myself, ate slowly, and went to bed early. Friday afternoon, Officer Torres called. Mrs. Lawson, we've completed our initial investigation. We have enough evidence to pursue criminal charges for identity theft and credit card fraud. Before we do, I wanted to give you a chance to think it through. These are your son and his girlfriend. I understand. Criminal charges mean court, possible jail time, a permanent record. It's serious. What they did was serious. It was. I'm not disagreeing. I just want to make sure you've considered all the implications. I had. I'd thought about little else for 2 weeks. Move forward with the charges, I said. That evening, 2 police officers arrived at my door. They asked for Gregor and Melina. I directed them upstairs. Through my study camera, I watched the encounter. The officers explained the situation. Gregor's face went white. Melina started crying immediately. They weren't arrested, not yet. But they were informed they were under investigation. Advised to get lawyers. Told not to leave the state. After the officers left, silence filled the house. Saturday morning, I woke to strange sounds. Footsteps on the stairs. Doors opening and closing. I checked the cameras. Gregor and Melina were packing. Hastily, frantically, throwing clothes into suitcases. No organization, no care. Just panic. By noon, their car was loaded. They didn't say goodbye. Didn't leave a note. Just drove away. I waited an hour, then went upstairs to their room. It was destroyed. Holes in the walls where they'd torn down posters. Carpet stained with who knows what. Broken furniture. Trash everywhere. I photographed everything. Every angle, every detail. Then I called Patricia. They're gone. And they've damaged the property. Document it all. Get repair estimates. We'll add it to the restitution claim. I spent the rest of the day cleaning, not because I wanted to erase them, but because I wanted my house back. The house Thomas and I had built our life in. The house I'd raised my children in. My sanctuary. Monday morning, Patricia called with news. They've agreed to option 2. Restitution of $800 per month. They can afford that. Gregor found a job at a call center. Melina's working retail. Between them, they're making enough to survive and pay you back. How long will it take? About 3 years and 3 months. But Harriet, if they miss even one payment, we can pursue criminal charges. 3 years. Gregor would be 39 when he finished paying me back. The thought should have made me sad. Instead, I felt nothing but relief. Set it up. The first payment arrived via electronic transfer on the 15th of the month. $800 appeared in my account. I moved it to a separate savings account. Every month after, another $800. I never spent it. The money wasn't the point. The point was consequences. The point was that actions matter. 2 weeks after they left, I hosted a tea party. Virginia came, along with Mrs. Patterson, the Hendersons, and Reverend Holmes. We sat in my clean, quiet dining room, eating cookies I'd baked that morning. Sunlight streamed through the lace curtains. The grandfather clock ticked peacefully. The house feels different, Virginia observed. Lighter. It is, I agreed. Mrs. Patterson reached across the table and squeezed my hand. You did the right thing, Harriet. A hard thing, but the right thing. Reverend Holmes nodded. Boundaries aren't cruel. They're necessary. You taught your son a lesson he should have learned years ago. We talked for hours about everything and nothing. About books and weather and neighborhood gossip. Normal things. Easy things. When they left, I stood on my porch and waved goodbye, feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Not happiness exactly. Not triumph. Just simple, honest peace. Word spread through the neighborhood naturally. People talked, as they always do. Some thought I'd been too harsh. Most understood. I received cards from former colleagues, students I'd taught decades ago, who'd heard the story through the grapevine. Each one expressed support. One letter came from a woman in St. Paul who'd read about my situation somehow. Dear Mrs. Lawson, thank you for sharing your story. My daughter has been living with me for 6 years, treating me the same way your son treated you. I thought I was alone. I thought I was being a bad mother for wanting her to leave. Your courage gave me courage. I've hired a lawyer. Thank you for showing me that dignity matters more than guilt. I kept that letter in my desk drawer. On difficult days, when I questioned my choices, I read it. Reminded myself that standing up for yourself wasn't selfish. It was survival. 6 months later, I sat in my study with a cup of tea, watching snow fall outside my window. Thomas's photo smiled at me from the desk. I did it, I told him quietly. I finally stood up. The house was mine again. Every room, every corner, every memory belonged to me. Gregor sent an email once a month with his payment confirmation. No personal messages. No apologies. Just proof of transaction. That was fine. I didn't need his apology. I didn't need his understanding. I needed my dignity back, and I'd taken it. The moral of my story isn't complicated. Dignity is worth more than free housing. Self-respect is worth more than keeping the peace. And sometimes, the kindest thing you can do for someone is teach them that actions have consequences. I picked up my book and settled into my reading chair. Outside, the neighborhood was quiet and peaceful. Inside, so was I. For the first time in 4 years, I was completely, entirely at peace.